So the October budget will have to find room, obviously, for all of these pressures that Katie has run through, but really encourage you not to see the improvement in 21-22 as an ongoing improvement. On the contrary, some of the improvements in the budget last year create additional issues for us and for the Expenditure Review Committee and the government to find room for. The Expenditure Review Committee has been meeting for a substantial amount of time in the last few weeks. We met this morning, we'll meet this afternoon as we finalise this budget. The October budget will be a pretty standard bread and butter budget because that's what it needs to be to find room for all of these pressures that Katie and I are outlining today. I encourage you to see this budget in October as the first of 3 or maybe 4 this term. The beginning, not the end, of a big national conversation about the structural position of the budget and how we fund the things that we value, not just in our economy but in our society, whether it's healthcare or the other essentials that we need to provide. There will be difficult decisions in the October budget, and one example of a difficult decision that we've had to take has been to stick with our predecessor's timing for the end of the petrol excise relief. We're under no illusions that this will be difficult for people. It's a difficult decision for us to take as well, but we put a premium on responsible budget management. We do have to make room for these pressures that Katie has run through, and so ending that fuel excise relief next Wednesday night is part of the story. Now, we need to remember that fuel prices in most parts of the country at the moment are now around 50 cents a litre below the peak recorded in July. And that's obviously a welcome development. In Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane and I think Adelaide, the drop from the peak is even greater than 50 cents at the moment, so we need to remember that as well. I think most people understand that the budget can't afford to keep the excise cut going forever, and people are preparing for the fact that we'll return to its normal setting. Now, today you would have seen industry estimates that there'll be more than 700 million litres of lower excise fuel in the system when the fuel excise is reintroduced. This is 700 million reasons why the price shouldn't shoot up by the full 23 cents on the night that the excise relief ends. We've been working closely with the servos and suppliers to understand that there are hundreds of millions of litres of fuel underground in tanks that was purchased at the lower price, and so the ACCC and the government expect that the price of petrol shouldn't shoot up at the Bowser on Wednesday night by the full 23 cents if the normal market pressures are in operation. This is why we've maximised the ACCC's role in monitoring the petrol situation as this petrol price relief comes off. The final issue before we take your questions is around the oil cap proposed by the Americans, agreed by the G7 and now supported by the Australian government as well. For some time now, I've been engaging with Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, in the US, have multiple conversations about their proposal, agreed by the G7, to impose a price cap on Russian oil exports. There are 2 big concerns here that we're trying to address. First of all, the cost of living pressures that come from skyrocketing oil pressures on the global market, and this is partly designed to deal with that. But also, when we think about the dangerous global economic situation right now and the risks to the global outlook, oil prices at the global level are a big part of those concerns. And so what this oil price cap is designed to do, and the Americans and the G7 and others will work through what are some considerable implementation issues. It's designed to try and come to a solution or a way to address those skyrocketing global oil prices as well. This is a big risk to the global economy going forward. It's not the only one, but it's a substantial one, and we are supporting the efforts of the Americans and the G7 as they do what they can to deal with it. There are implementation issues. There is no downside to the Australians participating in this effort, but potentially there is some upside, and that's why we want to be part of it. Over to you. We're going to go Trudy, then Probes, and then Phil, and then Rachel.
Treasurer, on that price cap, do you think this is just a purely symbolic move by Australia, or is this genuinely, in your view, going to drive down the global oil price?
Well, we need to be realistic about it, and I've been realistic about it. In the conversations I've had with Secretary Yellen, the conversations I've had at our end, Minister Wong has been part of that and her department. You know, we need to be realistic about it, but our view is anything that has the potential to deal with our concerns around the global oil price, then we should explore and be into. Nobody's under any illusions about the uncertainty around the Russian response, for example, or the implementation issues between now and the beginning of December when it's slated to come into effect. The Americans, G7 partners and others are doing a heap of work to try and make this as effective as possible, and we want to be part of that.